وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن خير الكلام كلام الله جل في العلا وأحسن هدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. We continue in Kitaab At-Tawheed by the great Imam Sheikh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah. 7:05 p.m. Wednesday, July the 31st, 2019 of the Gregorian calendar, which agrees now today. We're still in the month of Dhul Qa'dah, which is the 28th on the tonight, depending on the sighting of the moon. Of course, then people start looking for the sighting, I think tomorrow night, if I'm not mistaken, for whether or not the month of Dhul Hijjah will start. But anyway, we're still in the month of Dhul Qa'dah, or Dhul Qa'dah, the 28th, in this blessed month of Dhul Qa'dah, the year 1440 after the Hijrah of Mustafa alayhi salatu wassalam. We will continue in the chapter ما جاء أن الغلو في قبور الصالحين يصيرها أوثانا. The chapter which comes in the extremism in regards to the righteous, or the graves of, in regards to the graves of the righteous, will make them become idols worshipped besides Allah. We continue, we finish the meaning of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where he said, alayhi salatu wassalam, he made that dua, "O Allah, do not make my grave a wathan, an idol worshipped." And the anger of Allah became severe upon the people who took the graves of their prophets as masajid. And the narration was narrated by the great illustrious Imam, Shaykh al-Mufassirin, Muhammad ibn Jarir ibn Yazid al-Tabari, rahimahullah rahmatu wasi'ah. We finished at giving a little glimpse about that sifa, or that characteristic that's been affirmed in Kitaab and Sunnah, which is sifat al-ghadab, the characteristic of the anger of Allah Ta'ala. And we went a little bit into details, what I think was an istidrad, mufid, where we branched off or went away from the topic momentarily, what I think was very beneficial, where we try to make our lessons comprise of not only teaching the people the uluhiyah of the ibadah, or the proper worship, but all the other categories of monotheism, such as Tawheed al-Asma wa Sifat, the third category, which is unification of Allah as far as in His name and attributes, which is also something very beneficial. And we also like to speak about the affairs that's connected with the methodology of the Salaf, which is called al-Masail, of course, al-Masail al-Minhajiyah. Those affairs that are connected with the correct methodology of Islam, where it's incumbent upon every Muslim to learn as soon as he becomes Muslim. It's incumbent upon him to learn all these matters which we're covering right now. And they're from those affairs, as they say, min al-ilm wal-ilm al-ma'loom min ad-din bid-darura, that knowledge in which it's incumbent upon the abd, or the servant, to have knowledge of by extreme necessity. Extreme necessity. Where he has to have knowledge of these matters which we're speaking about, especially the affairs of how to worship Allah properly, what is polytheism. And likewise, you'll find, you'll say, the Ahl Ilm mention and say that when a person becomes Muslim, he needs to learn the affairs of minhaj. even though it's connected with Aqidah. Even though it's all the same. As Aqidah and Minhaj are the same. They are not divided. There's certain people you'll find, they'll say the statement, for example, the deviant sect called the Jama'at al-Ikhwan or Ikhwan al-Muslimin or Ikhwaniyin, as some of them say, that they say they are sound in the aspect of Aqidah, but they deviated in the aspect of Minhaj. And we say, Kalla. If they deviated in the aspect of Minhaj, that is a clear indication they deviated in the aspect of Aqidah. It's not separated, it was divided amongst the two affairs. They're both the same. They're synonymous and they're not separated. As soon as a person becomes Muslim, it's incumbent upon him to learn Minhaj, due to all the deviant sects that are out there, in which will subject and expose the Muslim to the punishment of Allah where he deviates with those who have deviated in the religion of Al-Islam. So as soon as one becomes Muslim, he learns the affairs of Tawheed without any hesitation. And he learns the affairs of Aqidah, and he learns the affairs of methodology of what they call Minhaj. So he can avoid the deviant sects and also know why they are considered deviant sects. There's a lot of Muslims, they know that there are deviant sects of the Muslims, from those who deviated of the Muslims, but also to learn their usul fasida, their corrupt principles, so you can know how to avoid it likewise, so you don't fall into it yourself. So how can you fall or avoid something if you don't have knowledge of it? So the affairs of Minhaj or methodology is also important for the mu'min or the Muslim to attain knowledge of. You'll find in the hadith it said, the anger of Allah became severe upon the people who took the graves of their prophets as masajid. If you look in the narration, as we know, as we concluded, as the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, his supplication was answered by Allah subhanahu jalla fil ula, where the Messenger of Allah made the dua. Here in this narration in which we're discussing, you'll find that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, in which it was mentioned in Imam Malik in his Muwatta, and also Muhammad ibn Jarir al-Tabari, as we're going to also mention if you look in your books, everyone. It says that the anger of Allah became severe upon the people who took the grave of their prophets as masajid. And we talked about the meaning of masajid, what it means. Number one, as we discussed, either building masajid over the graves or praying by a grave, thinking that person who's deceased in the grave can allow your dua to be answered. Or you think that that person in the grave is the one who will cause your dua to be answered by Allah. Or praying at the front of it, or the side of it, or on top of it is even more emphasized the prohibition. Because sitting on a grave is also impermissible, or praying towards it. It's the Messenger of Allah gave all these prohibitions. Not to sit on the grave, not to pray towards it, not to pray in its vicinity where it's in front of you or on the side of you, or make a ruku' or sujood in this vicinity of a grave or where a grave is. Why? Because like we talked about, it leads to the door of polytheism, which is the most uglified and vilified sin that any human being can commit. And if that's minor polytheism, where a person just prays by it, and if the person now starts to pray to the dead, then he has nullified his Islam and he has died in a state of major disbelief. Nasallallahu alayhi wa sallam min dhalik. We said the message of Allah's dua was answered. We mentioned that and said how the hikmah of Allah, how He predetermined and destined that the Messenger of Allah had died in the house of the Hujrat Aisha, our mother, radiallahu anha, in order for the Messenger of Allah's grave not to be taken as an idol, worship besides Allah. So we find that those walls in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected the grave of the Messenger of Allah, those firm, established walls, fortified to protect the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam from being worshipped besides Him subhanahu. If you look in your books, everyone, it says It's been narrated by the great Imam Muhammad ibn Jarir al-Tabari. Muhammad ibn Jarir al-Tabari. Muhammad Jarir al-Tabari, as we know, ya ma'ash al-ikhwa, is Muhammad ibn Jarir ibn Yazid al-Tabari, rahimahullah. Muhammad ibn Jarir ibn Yazid al-Tabari, the great Imam in Tafsir, who died 310 after the Hijrah. طيب, you'll find that the origin of his Tafsir, Muhammad ibn Jarir al-Tabari, the origin of his commentary of the ayah to the Book of Allah, you'll find that they are by athar. You'll find that the great Imam brings a lot of athar of the Sahaba. The origin of his tafsir, the origin of his commentary of the ayats in the Book of Allah are by athar. They're by athar. His commentary, or his tafsir, or his explanation, I'm sorry everyone, his explanation of the ayat in the Book of Allah, you'll find that all of the mufassirin, all of the scholars of tafsir rely on Muhammad Jarir al-Tabari, and they refer to him using his athar, or his narrations of the Sahaba, of the companions, in his tafsir. Even though some of those athar of the Sahaba are weak, some of those athar or those chains are weak, you'll find that he brings a lot of chains in his tafsir. There's a reason why the great Imam, Shaykh Muhammad ibn Jarir al-Tabari, he mentioned this, or why he took this method in his explanation of his tafsir, of his book, in tafsir. What was the reason why he gathered all these chains and these narrations of the Sahaba? What was the reason? What's the reason? The reason for that, ya ma'ash al-ikhwa, is to allow the reader of tafsir who has some type of experience and qualifications, knowing how to look in the chains and narrators to determine whether or not they're authentic or weak. So the person who has some type of experience or expertise in the science of hadith, these chains that he gathers for them, for those students or those scholars, benefits them. Because he brings and gathers all the different turuq, all the different chains of narrators. So the person who has the experience and the expertise to look the authenticity of the chain, they can now determine it for themselves because all the chains have been gathered in front of him. So he's able to now what? He doesn't have to put as much effort in gathering the chains because the great Imam, Muhammad Jarir al-Tabari, already gathered a lot of them for him. So, from this aspect, this is beneficial. He gathers all the chains for the person who has what everyone, those expertise and those qualifications, and they have an ala. They have an actual, if you want to say for lack of better words, a machine, but when we say machine here, they mean expertise. They have the specialization in order to look to all the chains that the great Imam Muhammad Jarir al-Tabari gathered for the person of hadith, or the person who's a student of knowledge or a scholar, to look to the chains. So this is one of the reasons why he gathered the chains, so many. For any person that looks in the tafsir of Muhammad Jarir al-Tabari, you'll find that he brings a lot of chains of the athar of the Sahaba. He brings a lot of chains of the narrations of the companions of the Messenger of Allah, gathering them together in order to what? For the student of knowledge who has the expertise to be able to either determine whether these narrations are weak or authentic. So in this aspect, this is what? Very beneficial. Very, very beneficial. To gather all these narrations. To gather the narrations so they will not become lost. So like we said, some of them, no doubt, are weak. And some of them are authentic, no doubt. However, from another aspect, it is dangerous. It can be dangerous. And it's not so good for a person who does not have expertise, or a person who does not have khalfiyat, or have some type of background or some type of benefit, some type of foundation in the knowledge of hadith, that they open up the book and they start to look and they're not able to determine between what is weak and what is authentic. And as a result of it, they'll mix the affairs up. Start using athar of the Sahaba that maybe will be weak and using them as some type of what? Some type of authentic information in the religion. And so in this aspect, for a person who does not have the expertise, it could be dangerous in regards to them. So in this aspect, the tafsir of Muhammad Jarir al-Tabari could be what? Could be dangerous in regards to some, especially those who do not have the proper what, everyone? The proper expertise. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Is it clear what I'm saying? طيب. So this type of tafsir, or this type of explanation of the ayat of the Book of Allah, in which the great Imam Muhammad Jarir ibn Yazid al-Tabari that he mentioned, in his tafsir, which is a tafsir, like we said, which is a marji', which is an actual resource that all of the students of knowledge and the ulama return back to in tafsir. You'll find that is one of the sources in which we use, and it is a tremendous resource that we return back to in the proper commentary and explanation of the ayat of the Book of Allah subhanahu jalla fil ula. طيب. So not only did, just to sum up everything that we're mentioning, the great Imam Muhammad al-Jarir al-Tabari, so not only did he put and added his tafsir using athar of the Sahaba, and that was it. Rather he added to that, or in addition to that, he brought what they call tafsir bin nadar. So you have what they call tafsir bil athar, and you have tafsir bin nadar. You have tafsir by athar, by the athar of the Sahaba, and you have tafsir bin nadar, by looking and scrutinizing and investigating the chains. So you have tafsir bil athar and tafsir bin nadar, in which the great Imam Muhammad Jarir al-Tabari gathered between both of the affairs. He gathered between both of the affairs. Both of what? Tafsir bil athar and tafsir wa bin nadar. Tafsir using the athar of the Sahaba, and tafsir using another meaning looking into the chains and able to investigate in order for one to determine whether or not it has been authentically reported upon that particular companion. What? Hold on for a second. The sister's door is locked. It's locked. You said the sister's at the door? They can't get in? Now, the tafsir of al-athar is the athar of the narrations of the companions of the Messenger of Allah. Tafsir of the athar, you'll find that the great Imam Sheikh Muhammad Jarir al-Tabari, that he brought a lot of athar of the Sahaba. طيب. And from the aspect of fiqh, the Imam al-Tabari, the Imam Muhammad Jarir al-Tabari, he was a mujtahid, no doubt. He was a scholar that had all the credentials for ijtihad, meaning to extract ahkam, extract rulings in the religion, no doubt. However, from the little observations that some of the ulama said to be on guard against, just to be observant, for those who study or use Muhammad Jarir al-Tabari, sometimes you'll find that the great Imam, Sheikh Muhammad Jarir al-Tabari, that he mentions the affair of ijma'. Ijma' meaning consensus of the companions of the Messenger of Allah. As we know in our religion, our resource that we use, or was considered a foundation, which is used or considered as the evidence in our religion, is Kitaab and Sunnah and Ijma'. Kitaab, Sunnah and Ijma'. The Ijma' of who, everyone? You have the Book of Allah is our evidence and our proof. And the Kitab and the Sunnah is also a proof. And then we have what is called everyone? Ijma'. Ijma' means what? Consensus. The consensus of who, everyone? The Sahaba. Don't just say the ulama. the Sahaba, Al-Jama'at al-Ula, the first generation, who are the Sahaba. The Sahaba, because some people think ijma' is of these days. Ijma' if we're talking about is the ijma' of, there is no ijma' for these days, there is no ijma'. The ijma' of the past is talking about the ijma', the consensus of the Sahaba. Consensus of the Sahaba. That is an evidence and proof in our religion. That is an evidence and proof in our religion. طيب. Well, now returning back to what we mentioned about Muhammad Jarir al-Tabari. In his tafsir, you'll find he claims in certain masail, in certain matters, that he claims that ijma', a consensus, even though you'll find that a sahabi or two sahabi disagreed in that particular matter. And then but he claimed that it was ijma'. And we know that this is what? This is incorrect. A person can't claim an ijma', you can't claim a consensus if there is a sahabi that have what? That have disagreed and went against that particular matter, or disagreed in that matter, excuse me. Because sometimes a certain masail, and as far as in the affairs of fiqh, we're not talking about usul, we're not talking about aqidah. So I want everyone to realize that. We're talking about the furu', the affairs of certain matters of fiqh. Certain matters of fiqh, you'll find there are certain matters that Ahl ilm they differ in the affairs of the furu', of the branches, in certain aspects of fiqh. Even though what has been unified is the aqidah and the foundations of the religion, and walillahi alhamd has been unified, and there's no difference of opinion in the foundations of Islam. So what we're talking about, however, in certain matters of fiqh and jurisprudence, you'll find that the great Imam Muhammad Jarir al-Tabari, he'll bring a speech or some type of narration, he said, or this particular matter in fiqh, that there's an ijma' of the Sahaba. Take in consideration that there's a Sahabi that disagreed. So the claim of ijma' now has been what? Been null and void. Because there is no consensus, because there was a Sahabi that disagreed. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? There was a companion that disagreed, and there might be even two companions that disagree. And in certain masail, certain matters, you even find that that Sahabi who had that one position was correct. Or that two Sahabi, or that two companions, they were correct. You understand what I'm saying, everyone? That those two Sahabi in that affair of fiqh were actually correct. So the claim of ijma' here is what? It's not accepted. Due to the fact, like we said, the meaning of consensus is that all of the Sahaba what? They agreed upon that affair. All of them agreed upon that particular matter. And the ijma' has a little bit more details. You have ijma' sukuti. You have other different types of ijma'at, of consensus, which don't want to talk about it right now because that's not what we're speaking about. But at any rate, the point of why we're mentioning this is because you'll find that Muhammad Jarir al-Tabari in his tafsir, sometimes in affairs of fiqh, he will sometimes mention or claim a consensus even though the affair is not like that. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Is it clear what I'm saying? And that's a little observation and a little tanbih and a little awareness in reading some of the books of the ulama of the past, which brings us now to talk about some of the little bit of mistakes of the great ai*imma of the past from our scholars, in which the people of deviance utilize in order to say that you Ahlus Sunnah take from deviance, so why can't we take from deviance of today? You'll find that there are people out there, people of desires. They'll utilize the ambiguity. For example, some of the ai*imma of the past fell into some zallat, a little bit of mistakes in certain affairs of, for example, of asma' wa sifat. They fell into a little bit of ta'wilat, a little bit of misinterpretations of certain names and attributes of Allah. And you guys do not label them to be mubtadi'ah. You Ahlus Sunnah don't label them to be innovators. So why can't we take from the people of innovation of today? Do you understand the ambiguity? You understand what I'm saying, everyone? I'll say it again one more time. The people of innovation. So this is a masala minhajiyah. This is an affair of minhaj, an affair of methodology in which we're taking time out to teach everyone. You'll find that this mas'ala, or this particular matter, those who are famous of utilizing this particular ambiguity is the deviant sect called the Haddadiyya. The Haddadiyya. And recently, there was a deviant that's in the UK, his name is Muhammad Hijab, also used this same ambiguity. And it's just the same shanshanatun qadimatun na'rifuha min akhza. It's the old ambiguities that the people of deviance before used. It's not something new. They used this in the 90s, and now and they never ceased that deviants of today that they still use the old ambiguities from what was refuted years ago. And they just try to bring it and utilize it in order to cause confusion. I'll say it again. You'll find that some of the great a'imma of the past fell into certain zallat, fell into certain mistakes, especially in regards to the names and attributes of Allah. They fell into what they call some ta'wilat, fell into some misinterpretation of certain names and attributes of Allah. You'll find that the people of deviance, especially the deviant sect called the Haddadiyya, and they are a branch of deviants who are just a branch that branched off from another deviant sect who are the people of takfir, the people who call or deem Muslims to be kuffar. The Haddadiyya are branched from them. It's the same ideology. I want you guys to know this because this is very important. People think that, what AbdurRazzaaq, what you're talking about? I'm talking about there deviant sects out there that you have to know who they are so you can be on guard not to fall into what they're upon. Because they're out there. And they will come to you with their ideologies and these type of speech. And I'm teaching you guys this so when you hear it, you'll automatically know that this is falsehood that I have to stay away from. They utilize this in order to cause confusion. And they will utilize this in order to make you fall into their deviance. The deviant sect of the Haddadiyya, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, is a branch of the people of takfir. It's a branch from the people of takfir. Ultimately, every Haddadi inevitably fell into takfir. Majority of them, if not all of them. Majority of the people who embarked upon the path of Haddadiyya fell either labeling people to be mubtadi'ah, labeling Muslims or people of Sunnah to being innovators, until some of it went beyond that, until they labeled them as kuffar, as non-Muslims. Rather, you'll find that the head of the Haddadiyya, who's Mahmud al-Haddad, he was the one who originated this deviant sect, Mahmud al-Haddad. Mahmud al-Haddad. Even him and his wife were upon Haddadiyya. And you'll find that they used to wear their thobes with their buttons like this, unbuckled. I don't know why. I think they utilize a narration where they say that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ one day came out with his thobe unbuttoned. And then they just took it and ran with it. So, and I remember I was in Al-Medina, and I was Sheikh Abdullah al-Bukhari, this is years ago. And he seen that I forgot that I had a couple of buttons I made wudu, and I think I was coming out and I forgot to button my thobe. He said, button your thobe up. He said, those are the ways. He said, that's the sign of Haddadiyya, because that's how they wear their thobe. He said, that's how they wear their thobe, like unbuttoned like this. But at any rate, you'll find that they utilize athar of the Sahaba. From the Haddadiyya, they tried to not only use athar, everyone. Athar of the Salaf, generally. Not the Sahaba, but the Salaf. Misinterpreting their speech and using certain athar to justify their deviance. At any rate, Mahmud al-Haddad originally was a person of takfir. He was originally from Jama'at al-Takfir, from the group of who's called the people of takfir, who deem Muslims to be unbelievers or disbelievers. He used to be upon that, and then he came with this deviant sect, from going from that type of extreme to another extreme, with now labeling people of the Sunnah whose foundations and their origin are the people of the Sunnah, label them to be innovators and outside the fold of Salafiyya and the Sunnah. So he went from labeling people, Muslims, to being kuffar, to now labeling Muslims as being what? Innovators. So that's the reason why we say that the Haddadiyya are a branch of what? a branch of the people of takfir. And inevitably you'll find that a lot of people that are upon this deviant concept and ideology fell into takfir. Fell into takfir and deeming people to be kuffar. Deeming people to be kuffar from the Muslims. You'll find that they start making those type of statements. Inevitably that's what it leads to. Al-Falz, wording that indicates that a person is an unbeliever and outside the fold of Islam. طيب. The Haddadis from their deviant ambiguities that they used to utilize is what I'm speaking about now. What they used to use is to say that the A'imma of the past, from them as Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar, Al-Asqalani, and Al-Imam An-Nawawi, and for example, some of these scholars, some of the great ulama, Muhammad Jarir al-Tabari, or from the great scholars such as Ibn al-Arabi, not Ibn Arabi, the Sufi, the other Ibn al-Arabi, who's Salafi, Maliki, he fell into some ta'wilat. He fell into some misinterpretation of some names and attributes of Allah. Even him. We're not talking about Ibn Arabi. We're not talking about Ibn Arabi, the one who the Sufis want to be like until they believe that, or he believed that Allah is one with the human being, and the human being can become one with Allah. We're not talking about Ibn Arabi, without the alif wal lam. We're talking about Ibn al-Arabi. Ibn al-Arabi. طيب. So they say, the Haddadis, they used to say, you Ahlul Sunnah, utilize these people's books, and you'll even find from the deviant sects, not only from the people of Haddadi or from the Haddadis, even from the Ikhwanis, who are on the opposite side of the extreme. They say, طيب, we take from these scholars who had somewhat deviance with them. That's what they say. And how come we can't take from the deviant scholars of today, even though these scholars fell into some certain mistakes of what we just mentioned as far as in the names and attributes of Allah. طيب. So the Haddadis utilize this ambiguity in regards to labeling Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, the great Imam, as a mubtadi'. They say he's a mubtadi'. The Imam Nawawi is also mubtadi' with them. Also, who was from there? From the Imam Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar. Ibn al-Jawzi also fell into a little bit of some ta'wilat. Ahsant. Not Ibn al-Qayyim, we're talking about Ibn al-Jawzi. Certain people sometimes they think that they're the same, they're not. Ibn al-Jawzi is not Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyah. They're two different people. Ibn al-Jawzi also fell into some zallat to the past. طيب. So the Haddadis say, we burn these books. We burn the books of Hafidh ibn Hajar. We burn the books of Imam Nawawi. We burn the books of these ulama. We burn their books. We don't benefit them because we label them all to be innovators. So it's not permissible for us to what? Take from their books or take from their knowledge. And if we burn the books of the people of today who's upon innovation, then likewise we need to burn the people who fell in the innovation of the past. So that they may equal the ulama of the past, similar to those of the people of deviance of today, and say that they're all on the same level. طيب. Is everyone understanding what I'm saying so far? Jay. Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar, Al-Imam Nawawi, and those ulama of the past who have serviced the sunnah of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu in manners that have been unprecedented of what we see, as far as gathering all the texts and all the books that we utilize, especially from these A'imma that we utilize of today. You'll find that the great Imam Shaykh Salih Fawzan Hafidhullah answered this doubtful matter by saying, he said, this was a ambiguity or doubtful matter utilized by the people of the deviant sects, especially of today, from those who follow the way of Mahmud al-Haddad. And you'll also find the great Imam Muhammad al-Jami refuting Mahmud al-Haddad. And also the great Imam Rabi' ibn Hadi al-Madkhali also refuting Mahmud al-Haddad. And they all refuted him in this type of ambiguity that he brought in order to stir up and cause confusion amongst the people and amongst Ahlul Sunnah. So you find that people who are influenced by Mahmud Haddad started burning books such as Sahih al-Bukhari, which is Fath al-Bari. They started burning the books, getting rid of them, throwing them in the garbage. Fath al-Bari. Fath al-Bari, throwing them in the garbage, setting them on fire. These books need to be set on fire. These are books of the Mubtadi'ah. As Fath al-Bari is the greatest explanation of Sahih al-Bukhari, as the ulama label it. As you'll find that they said that's the greatest sharh, even though there was a lot of explanations of Sahih al-Bukhari. There's a lot of explanations. But Fath al-Bari is the one that stands out at the top of the list, if not all of them. Fath al-Bari was an explanation of Sahih al-Bukhari, in which all the ulama and no student of knowledge is free from having that book in his library, except that he has to have that book in his library. Every student of knowledge needs Fath al-Bari in his library, which is the explanation of Sahih al-Bukhari. Tayyib, Mahmud al-Haddad comes along and says, well, we don't need those books. Burn it. He's Mubtadi'. Imam Nawawi, burn Sahih Muslim. Burn Sahih Muslim, because we know Imam Nawawi also authored. He was the one that serviced Sahih Muslim. He explained it. Not only did he explain it, he put it in tabweebat. He put it in chapters. He put it in chapters and put in each hadith and all the different chapters that was suitable for each particular affair that the hadith was speaking about. For example, he would take the hadith he'll take the hadith and he'll put the hadith in. If the hadith was talking about, for example, tahara, he put the hadith in the chapter of tahara, of purification. If the hadith was talking about, for example, the fitna of the Dajjal, he put the chapter, for example, he put that hadith in, for example, the chapter, the signs of the day of resurrection, to put it in order. You understand, everyone? Or for example, Imam Nawawi took the hadith, for example, of, let's just say, hadith talking about how it's obligatory for a person to get married or whatever, or what have you. He took that hadith which talks about marriage, put it in a chapter under the heading, obligatory for a person to have witnesses for a marriage, or what have you. He put the chapter, he put the Sahih Muslim in order. He put it in order. At any rate, Mahmud Haddad said we need to take these books of those who found innovations. They're all innovators. Burn these books, get rid of them, we don't need them. Not realizing that Hafid ibn Hajar, you'll find that the great Imam, Al-Imam Shaykh Rabi' Hafidullah, he said that Imam Al-Hafid ibn Hajar learned Minhaj al-Salafi, learned it, but he was not able to propagate it, but he knew it. And he was not Ash'ari, because you'll find that Mahmud Haddad say he's a Mubtadi' and he had Ash'ariyah with him. The books that Hafid ibn Hajar, for example, that he authored, you'll find of what he had in it had way more benefit than a little bit of mistakes that he fell into. Because his usul, he learned Minhaj al-Salafi. He learned it, he was not able to propagate it. And he also deemed the deviant sect, the Asha'ira, to be a deviant sect. So that means he does not believe what the Asha'ira believed, because he called them a sect in his book. He said they're a sect. However, due to the environment he was around, he fell into a little bit of mistakes in the aspect of what? Of some of the misinterpretations of the name and the attributes of Allah, in which the ulama came behind him and they corrected those little few mistakes that he had in those books, and now the book has purely been what? Cleansed. But labeling him as a mubtadi' is going to the utmost of extreme. What he did for Islam is of way more benefit than what he fell into the little bit of minor mistakes in his books. Whereas there's no student of knowledge in the aspect of fiqh, or in the aspect of hadith, or in the aspect of Bukhari, of learning the usul in regards to learning Sahihain and hadith, also in tarikh, also in regards to rijal, of checking and change the narrators, except that you'll find that every student of knowledge needs the books of Hafid ibn Hajar. For example, every student of knowledge that knows that when you want to now specialize in hadith, the first book that you rely on to specialize in hadith is called Nuzhat al-Nadhr. Nuzhat al-Nadhr was I'm sorry everyone. Nukhbat al-Fikr. Nukhbatul Fikr is the first book that every student of knowledge starts with if he wants to specialize in the science of hadith. He starts with a book called Nukhbatul Fikr. Nukhbatul Fikr is authored by Hafidh ibn Hajar. Nukhbatul Fikr is authored by Hafidh ibn Hajar. As soon as you person wants to learn hadith, the science of it, you'll find that every scholar says, what book do I start with, Sheikh? He'll say to you, Nukhbatul Fikr. Memorize Nukhbatul Fikr. Little small text, little small book, little metin, memorize it. Gives you good foundation of science of hadith. Hafidh ibn Hajar also wrote a book, tremendous, called An-Nukat. An-Nukat ala Ibn Salah, which is also a tremendous book of hadith, a tremendous book in teaching the science and terminology of hadith, in which all the ulama of the sunnah praise. Where that was from the Risala Magister of Sheikh Rabi', where he also checked the book of Nukat. Nukat is a tremendous book in science of hadith, of servicing and giving a student the knowledge of the background of of the science and the knowledge of hadith, and strengthening your mind and strengthening your background and strengthening your usul as far as in hadith. Who is that author by? Nukat, Hafidh ibn Hajar. Another book by Hafidh ibn Hajar, for example, a book in which every student of knowledge needs to know of the narrators. What's this fly that keeps bothering? The narrators. The narrators, meaning that all the narrators and their grades of the chains in which every hadith is attached to. Names of narrators. Hafidh ibn Hajar has a book called Taqreeb al-Tahdhib. Tahdhib al-Taqreeb, or Taqreeb, excuse me. Which is a book of hadith that gives you the grade of all the narrators that have narrated hadith upon the Prophet ﷺ. So Taqreeb al-Tahdhib. I'll tell you later. Taqreeb al-Tahdhib is a book in which every person of hadith needs. Who wrote that book? Hafidh ibn Hajar. Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar also has a tremendous book called Al-Matalib al-Aliyah. Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar also has a book called Mizan. Mizan by the narrators of hadith. He also has Fath al-Bari, where the ulama say about that, La hijra ba'd al-Fath. There is no hijrah. There is no migration after the Fath. And they was talking about Fath al-Bari. To let you know the high level of his explanation of what he did in Bukhari, and he fell into a little bit of minor mistakes in the book. But the benefit of what he serviced in the books of hadith outweighed the little bit of small mistakes that he fell into in regards to those little names and attributes of Allah, in which the ulama came behind him, corrected it, and now the book has become 100% excellent for every person to read, as long as they know those little small minor mistakes that the great Imam fell into. All the A'imma unanimously say it is not for anyone now to grade or to now deem Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar to be a mubtadi', based upon the little small mistakes that he fell into in this regard, because, like we said, he learned Minhaj al-Salafi, he knew it, but he was not able to propagate it. And he is not labeled a mubtadi' as a result of those little minor mistakes that he fell into, because you'll find that even the great Imam, Salih Fawzan mentioned and said, what he did a benefit for the ummah totally outweighed the little small mistakes he fell into. In regards to now, these other people who are mubtadi'ah of today, for their mistakes and their fasad and their corruption and their mistakes are far more than the benefit that they brought for the ummah. Such as, for example, Sayyid Qutb, or for example, Al-Mawdudi, and for example, the different deviant sects of today, and the different, and for example, Sayyid Qutb, or Al-Mawdudi, and those who are like them, their mistakes and what they did for the ummah was totally, way worse than what they did of good. Way worse. That the books that they wrote, in which still to today, those people who kill innocent people and innocent bystanders rely on their books in order to deem people to be innovators, or deem them to be kuffar, which as a result of it, it's legal for me to shed the blood of an innocent bystander or soul. And whose books do they utilize, everyone? The books of Sayyid Qutb. Utilize his books in order now to deem non-Muslims and Muslims to either be kuffar or either be people of bid'ah, and as a result of it, killing them or shedding their blood unlawfully. So what they did, as far as the innovators of today, and some of the innovators of the past whose usul was from the people of al-bid'ah, of course, and service their bid'ah way more, and their evil and their corruption was way more than what they brought of benefit. As a result of it, there's no comparison between those innovators and what the little small mistakes of the great imam or these great ai*imma fell into of the past. Did you understand, everyone? So there's no comparison where a person can utilize the little small mistakes that some of these ai*imma fell into in the past to say these people are mubtadi'ah, where now you either burn their books, which was the ways of the Haddadiyah, or on the opposite side of the extreme, to justify, to say why we can take from people innovation with the people of the Ikhwan al-Muslimin and the deviant sects of today who are upon some type of way that is totally watered down in order to justify that they're upon the truth by saying we can take from innovators because you take from Hafiz ibn Hajar. We can take from innovators because you take from these ai*imma that fell into these little bit of mistakes. So they say, now see, that's justifiable for us. And we say, the mistakes that these people are bringing and the corruption they have brought and the evil they have brought upon the ummah is way more bigger than the little small mistakes that Hafiz ibn Hajar and the likes of them fell into. There's no comparison between the two. And it's not for you now to utilize or justify why you're upon or why you take from the people of deviant sects with this type of ambiguity that you utilize. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? I'm teaching you guys this so you can be on guard when you hear this nonsense. You take from Hafiz ibn Hajar, he's Ash'ari. He's not Ash'ari. Hafiz ibn Hajar, you'll find that he fell into those little bit of mistakes, which he deemed the people of the Ash'ari to be a deviant sect. To let you know he was not in agreement with their foundations and principles at all. But he did fall into a little bit of minor mistakes in regard to Asma wa Sifat. His usul, like we said, his usul was the people of the Sunnah, even though he fell into a little bit of mistakes. His usul, his foundation, in regards to the mubtadi'ah of some of them of the past, their foundation was the foundations of the people of bid'ah. And their service for their bid'ah was way more, of course, and their corruption was evil. Of what they propagated and what they aided, of spreading their corruption and servicing their bid'ah. Those people whose usul, or their principles or their foundations corrupt, such as, for example, Zamakhshari. Zamakhshari was Mu'tazili. I don't feel like getting to that right now. I'll get into that right now. But at any rate, understand, everyone, that this is a type of ambiguity that is out there from deviant sects from the Muslims. That they teach you this nonsense. And like we said, this was even utilized by even certain people of today. Certain people of today just recently utilized the same ambiguity. From them is this individual, like we said, his name was Muhammad Hijab. Muhammad Hijab, and Abu Iyad demolished him and destroyed him. Alhamdulillah. Demolished him, destroyed him. You'll find in those refutations, he utilized the same ambiguity. You guys take from y'all take from Hafiz Hajar, he's clear Ash'ari. I was like, wow. As soon as I heard that, I was like, oh, that's the old ambiguity from 30 years ago he's using. SubhanAllah, it's like the people deviants can't come with anything new these days. They just resort to what came before and just try to renew it, thinking that the people, he could capitalize on the people's ignorance due to the fact that that might be certain new people that don't know about it, and thinking that the people of the Sunnah are in a state of heedlessness. But the people who of the Sunnah, when they hear that, they say, that's an old ambiguity. That's from years ago. That was utilized by the Mahmoud Haddad in the 90s. And here he is trying to use it in 2019. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Is it clear? So Muhammad al-Jarir al-Tabari, like I said, in regards to this matter, we say, some of the Mahmoud al-Haddad, and even some of the Tullab al-Ilm, and even Shaykh Uthaymeen even mentioned this. Listen what he said about what we just mentioned. He says, وَالْعَجِيبُ أَنِّي رَأَيْتُ بَعْضَ الْمُتَأَخِّرِينَ يحضنون الطلبة من تفسير محمد الجليل الطبري لأنه مملوء على زعمهم بالإسرائيليات. That's the kalam of the Haddadis. He said, what's so amazing is that I've seen certain people of today warning the students of knowledge from the tafsir of Muhammad al-Jalil al-Tabari. He said, because they say in their so-called claim that it's filled with Israeliyat, meaning the narrations of the people from Bani Israel. And we say, and they say instead of that, don't read that book of Muhammad Jalil al-Tabari. So rather read the book of Kashaf by Zamakhshari. Zamakhshari was Mu'tazili. So how are you going to leave off the book of Muhammad Jalil al-Tabari and now resort to the tafsir of someone who's Mu'tazili? Leave off the book of what? Muhammad Jalil al-Tabari, read the book of Zamakhshari. Zamakhshari was Mu'tazili, brothers. He was Mu'tazili. Anything similar to that. And they are mistaken in that. And listen to what he goes on to say. لأنهم لجهلهم بفضل التفسير بالآثار عن السلف واعتزازهم بأنفسهم وإعجابهم بآرائهم صاروا يقولون هذا. Now, he said due to their fact that they were, due to their ignorance, he says, and them preferring instead of the tafsir that's by the athar of the salaf and them being proud of that, they decided to now rely upon this tafsir, who's aiding the tafsir of those who are upon deviance from the aqidah of the people of i'tizal, the people of deviance from the Mu'tazila, who at the head of them who are Abu Ubaid, who was Wasil ibn Ata wa Amr ibn Ubaid. Wasil ibn Ata and Amr ibn Ubaid, who warned against Hassan al-Basri. Anyway, I don't want to get into that. Anyway, everyone understand? As Wasil ibn Ata and Amr ibn Ubaid warned against Hassan al-Basri. Warned against him by utilizing the same nonsense they use today. They are just the scholars of menses and postnatal bleeding. Don't listen to them. He doesn't understand the true reality of what the Muslims are facing. The same thing that was utilized back then is the same exact thing that is what? Utilized today. Oh, don't take from Sheikh Salih Fawzan. They don't understand the reality of the black man in the ghetto. The same concept. They don't understand the hardships and the difficulties of the black man in the hood. So don't listen to them. Same thing about what happened to Hassan al-Basri. The Mu'tazila said, oh, don't listen to him. He's just a scholar that just knows about fatwa, about menses and postnatal bleeding, but he doesn't know the reality. That's all he has knowledge of. He does not have knowledge of what's the true reality of affairs. Same thing of what people utilize today. You don't know to understand the plight of the black man. You don't understand our realities and what's going on. Those ulama don't know. They don't know. Stay away from them. You need to embark upon us as taking your scholars, because we know the plight of the black man of the ghetto in the hood. You understand, everyone? It's the same concept of the past. It's the same thing that's going on what? Today. ما أشبه الليل بالبارحة. How the night of the past is similar to the night of the evening. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? This is what I'm teaching brothers and sisters in Tawheed. At the same time, we teach you minhaj. We teach you the affairs of methodology, because they are very important that a Muslim learn these matters as soon as you become Muslim. Because the shubha khattafa wal qulub da'ifa, that the ambiguities, they are sharp in their claws, and the hearts of the human beings are weak, meaning that you can be easily what? Deceived. You can be easily deceived. Then that we teach you the knowledge of these affairs so you do not become what? Affected. Is it clear as I'm saying, everyone? So as soon as you hear, for example, a person would say, what about Mahmud al-Haddad? Mahmud al-Haddad was originally from the people of Takfir. And the majority of those who embarked upon his wave fell into Takfir, even though they were Haddadi, fell into Takfir. For example, matter of fact, I'll just keep it summarized. At any rate, let's get back to the books. I think that was enough. طيب. Go back to your books, everyone. On the authority of Sufyan an Mansur an Mujahid. As we continue in the chapter, it says, أَفَرَأَيْتُمُ اللَّاتَ وَالْعُزَّى On the authority of Sufyan, Sufyan is either Sufyan ibn Uyayna or Sufyan al-Thawri. Where's your book? Sufyan al-Thawri or Ibn Uyayna. والمبهم يمكن معرفته بمعرفة شيوخه وتلاميذه وفي الشرح. Anyways, what comes in the chain? Who's Sufyan here? It's either Sufyan who? Ibn Uyayna or Sufyan al-Thawri. But what Ahl Ilm say in this regard of this chain here, if you look in it, there's Sufyan, the great Imam, Sufyan al-Thawri. Sufyan al-Thawri. طيب, it says on the authority Mujahid, the great A'imma of Tafsir, who took and read the Mus'haf to Ibn Abbas. Every single ayah he stopped Ibn Abbas at and asked him concerning that particular verse in the Quran. And his name was Mujahid ibn Jabr al-Makki. Mujahid ibn Jabr al-Makki. And he said about himself, he said, عرضت المصحف على عبد الله بن عباس من فاتحته إلى خاتمته فما تجاوزت آية إلا وقفت عندها أسأله عن تفسيرها. And he said that I shown the Mus'haf upon Abdullah ibn Abbas. This is Mujahid. It says in your book. Mujahid, and his name was Mujahid ibn Jabr. Ibn Jabr. Jim Ba Ra Jabr al-Makki. He said that I shown the Mus'haf to Abdullah ibn Abbas from the beginning to the end. And I asked and stopped Ibn Abbas upon every verse, asking him and concerning every ayah in the book of Allah. Asking about his verse. طيب. قوله. If you look in your books, everyone, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, do you not see Al-Lat wal-Uzza? طيب. Do you not see Lat wal-Uzza? Notice the great Imam, Shaykh Muhammad Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah, mentioned this verse in regards to the title of the chapter. Look to the title of the chapter, everyone. The title of the chapter is what? What comes in that extremism in the graves of the righteous, that it becomes idols. طيب. Look to Shaykh Muhammad Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah. He used this verse as a evidence. How? What's the connection? What's the correlation? تفضل. تفضل. I'm sorry. جيد. أحسنت يا رشيد. Basically, just as it mentions the ayah, self-explanatory. It says, if you look to the ayah, Lat was a righteous man. Lat, it was a righteous man. And we know there's two recitations in the ayah. There's two recitations if you look in the ayah in your books. أَفَرَأَيْتُمُ اللَّاتَ وَالْعُزَّى وَمَنَاةَ الثَّالِثَةَ الْأُخْرَى أَلَّكُمُ الذَّكَرُ وَلَهُ الْأُنثَى تِلْكَ إِذًا قِسْمَةٌ ضِيزَى. طيب, which is Surah An-Najm. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, as we read in the Qiraat Hafs, or in the Mus'haf right now, it's read like this. أَفَرَأَيْتُمُ اللَّاتَ وَالْعُزَّى وَمَنَاةَ الثَّالِثَةَ الْأُخْرَى. طيب, there's another recitation. أَفَرَأَيْتُمُ اللَّاتَ وَالْعُزَّى وَمَنَاةَ الثَّالِثَةَ الْأُخْرَى. You understand, everyone? So you hear the difference? أَفَرَأَيْتُمُ اللَّاتَ وَالْعُزَّى أَفَرَأَيْتُمُ اللَّاتَ وَالْعُزَّى. You hear the difference? طيب, when you learn the recitation of that verses, they have different meanings. Al-Lat without the shadda on top of it, أَفَرَأَيْتُمُ, like how we read it in the Mus'haf now. أَفَرَأَيْتُمُ اللَّاتَ وَالْعُزَّى. That is derived from ilah, but they made it a female. طيب, that's one meaning. أَفَرَأَيْتُمُ اللَّاتَ وَالْعُزَّى. Al-Lat, as we know, with the shadda, as I just said it, Lat wal-Uzza. طيب, Lat here with the shadda on the ta is a derivative of the verb in the Arabic language, Lat yalutu. Lat yalutu, which means someone who used to crush and grind and give of a certain food to the people. And those people were the pilgrims who came to make Hajj. The pilgrims who came to make Hajj, he had a specific spot, and he used to stand at it, and he used to give what they call a sawiq to the people of Hajj. It's in your books, it's in there. he used to give food and feed the pilgrims who came for Hajj. He used to make what they call sawiq. Sawiq was a type of something that was grinded up. It was something that was made out of barley. It was cooked, then it was grinded up, then it was mixed with dates and cheese and other things, and then he would serve it to the pilgrims to make Hajj. What's the correlation? What's the connection, everyone? When he died, he was somebody who was righteous. When he died, the people now took that place where he used to do this, and they glorified what he was, that person who was righteous. They glorified him specifically, and the place where he used to feed the pilgrims, they glorified it. Over time, as time elapsed, the people started taking that particular place where he used to be, and his grave, as some narration says, his grave was taken as an idol of worship. His grave was taken as an idol of worship. So you see the correlation of why the great Imam used this ayah in order for what? As it serves its purpose of it substantiating for why the great Imam put this under the heading, meaning under the chapter. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? So not only, like we said, was a person that was righteous, he died, they started glorifying him, overpraising him, exceeding the bounds in praise, exceeding the bounds, until they started to now transgress to the point where he was taken as a deity, where they started worshiping his what? His grave. And this is exactly what happened to the Christians, and it's exactly what's happening to the Muslims, of those who worships the dead and worships people, where the shaitan used the same trick to deceive the people of the past. He used the exact same trick of today. It's no different. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Utilizing people of righteousness, exceeding the bounds and overpraising them, until shaitan makes them fall into what? Into polytheism, as a result of this extremism in their praise and in their love and in their glorification of these righteous people. Is it clear what I'm saying? Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? طيب. That's the reason why, brothers and sisters, it's been given us a warning that what? In regards to the graves, it's not permissible to plaster them. Or, for example, to put what they call Just is that type of material. It's like a plaster, I think they call it. Tajassis. Like some type of like plaster, what people use as some material to make it like shiny and decorated. It's impermissible to do that. Or to build some raised structure upon it, or writing upon it. In the memory of so-and-so who's the great person, or what have you. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Writing upon it out of fear of what will come as a result of it, of what happened in this ayah. Because it led to this type of what? This type of sin, which is the greatest sin that any human being can commit, which is worshiping the creation. The greatest sin that any human being can commit, which is worshiping the creation. Not worshiping the Creator totally and wholeheartedly. So anything that now opened up this door, like we said, the Prophet ﷺ shut it. Shut it in the most what? In the most careful manner, making sure that he closed off any door that will take one down the road to this type of what? This type of sin, which is considered the most destructive of all sins. May Allah to protect us and you from that. طيب. If you flip the page, everyone, it says in the authority of Abdullah ibn Abbas, it says قال لعن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم زائرات القبور والمتخذين عليها المساجد والسرج والمتخذين عليها المساجد والسرج. When the authority Ibn Abbas said the message of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم, that he cursed زائرات القبور, the women who visit graves. We'll talk about this matter. And those who took upon the graves who took upon the graves, masajid. They built graves upon the masajid. They built masajid upon the graves. Or no, it could be vice versa, put a grave inside the masajid. Who took the graves, built masajid upon the graves, and suruj. Suruj. What's suruj? Lanterns, or any type of what? Light, of what is considered like a light, or an illuminating light, or torch that will light around the grave. We'll talk about whether or not can you carry it in the grave. We'll talk about that later, inshallah. Meaning just to utilize it as something that has to be done, that the person just carries it along with him, as to utilize it for a little bit of light, and then just to leave out, just because something of a necessity had to be taken care of, and then he leaves and he blows it out. That's something different. We're talking about someone that comes and lights around the grave, as if someone outside looking in can look that there was so special about the grave that they will have all these lights around it, or these type of lanterns around it, or these type of torches around it, to make it stand out. You understand? In these days and times, they would take those type of lights and have it clearly shining specifically on that spot. You understand, everyone? That is what the unseen shaitan utilized in order for the people to fall into polytheism. Is it clear what I'm saying? As far as in regards to necessity, sometimes once somebody carries it in, takes your necessity, leaves out. That's something we'll talk about later. That's something totally different, which we'll talk about inshallah. Tayyib. First thing we discussed previously in last class, we talked about visiting the graves. Is it an affair? Or before we talk about this, we'll use to talk about with the great Imam Malik. Imam Malik ibn Anas al-Usbuhi, the great Imam. He used to hate the statement, I visited the grave of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he said of the prohibition he said, sorry everyone, it is hated and detested that a person say this. Or any person that was known for righteousness and prominence in the religion. That person should not say, extracting from the narration that we already just read in the book, that the Messenger of Allah made dua, O Allah, do not make my grave an idol worship. Imam Malik extracted from that saying, it's detested and hated that a person say, I visited the grave of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I visited, where you come from, من أين أتيت من أين جئت زرت قبر الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم كان الإمام مالك يكره هذا. That the Imam Malik used to detest this type of wording or this type of statement. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? He said that a person should not say, I visited the grave of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rather, he should say, I visited the what? The masjid. I visited the masjid. And he also mentioned and said that a person of prominence that's known for righteousness in the religion and uprightness, that a person should not say what? That I visited the grave of so-and-so, or I visited the grave of Hussein, or I visited the grave of Umar al-Khattab, or I visited the grave of our mother Aisha radiallahu anha. I visited the grave of so-and-so. People of prominence or righteousness. He said it's hated. It's hated that person say that. He said, but as for a person that is the norm, or a person that maybe might be from the common folk, from a person or his parents or his mother, that I visit the grave of my mother, or I visit the grave of my father, or what have you. And he said, inshallah, that's no problem with that. As far as the Messenger of Allah, or people who is known for uprightness in our religion, he said it's detested that one say that in statement. That I visited because due to the fact of these days and times, what is understood is a what? Is an incorrect, corruptive meaning in which the people of today practice of some type of polytheism, and they say in their words clearly, I visited the grave of the Messenger of Allah. Where that extra meaning was now understood, which was a type of what? Polytheistic type of practice in which the people who worship graves do today from the Muslims. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? I even read quickly what the great Imam, but the great Imam Abdurrahman bin Ali Hassan Ali Sheikh that he mentioned said, rahimahullah. He said that Imam Malik, as a matter of fact, we could go, Sheikh Abdurrahman Ali Hassan Ali Sheikh. He said, Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah that he mentioned said, ومالك قد أدرك التابعين وهو أعلم الناس بهذه المسألة فدل ذلك على أنه لم يكن معروفا عندهم ألفاظ زيارة قبر النبي إلى أن قال وقد ذكروا في أسباب كراهيته لأن يقول زرت قبر الرسول لأن هذا اللفظ قد صار كثير من الناس يريد به الزيارة البدعية، الزيارة البدعية، وهو قصد الميت لسؤاله ودعائه والرغبة إليه في قضاء الحوائج ونحو ذلك مما يفعله كثير من الناس، فهم يعنون بلفظ الزيارة مثل هذا، فهذا ليس بمشروع باتفاق الأئمة. Shaykh al-Islam mentioned that he said that Imam Malik, who's Imam of Al-Madinah, the city of the Prophet ﷺ, Imam Dar al-Hijrah, that he said that I have reached the tabi'een, meaning those who took knowledge from the companions of the Messenger of Allah ﷺ. And he said they were the most knowledgeable of the people in regards to this matter. And he said, which is an indication, Shaykh al-Islam goes on to say, that it was not known with the tabi'een or the sahaba that they used to say the statement, I visited the grave of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I visited the grave of the Messenger of Allah. He said that this wasn't known. He said to the point they even mentioned, meaning for the tabi'een, that the reasons for why the statement is detested, that to say I visited the grave of the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, because this word has become with a lot of people, when they say it, they intend by it an innovated visit, an innovated practice, and an innovated polytheistic type of what? Practice and innovation that they do. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Is it clear what I'm saying? Because they now start to intend, for why they came to the masjid, the intention was for the dead, and to ask the dead, and to make dua to the dead, or to make dua to the deceased, or to make dua to the deceased to ask them for mercy, or for them to be, or asking them, for example, to take care of something that's detrimental taking place in their lives, that they give them some relief. Asking the same questions or the same requests they would ask Allah, they was asking the dead or asking the deceased. And you will find that Shaykh al-Islam goes on to say, and this is legislated by the agreement of the A'imma. Notice he didn't say, he's very careful in his words, he said the agreement of the A'imma. He said, Imam Malik, وَكَرِهَ Malik أن يتكلم بلفظ مجمل يدل على معنى فاسد. Imam Malik detested that a person speak a wording or general wording that indicates a corrupt meaning. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Is it clear or is it not clear? Jay. The next narration that we're going to say, this is what we want to discuss today. The narration when the Messenger of Allah said, لَعَنَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ زَائِرَاتِ الْقُبُورِ. The Messenger of Allah cursed the women that visited graves. طيب. You'll find that a lot of Ahl Ilm say that the word za'irat, that lafza, that wording is da'if. That's weak. That lafza, the word za'irat, was correct is zawarat. That's more authentic. That's authentic. Zawarat. Zawarat al-qubur. Those women that constantly visit the graves. Constantly visit the graves. That's more what? Appropriate as far as in its authenticity. Zawarat al-qubur. Zawarat. Not za'irat. Zawarat. طيب. This mas'ala here, you'll find that it is a mas'ala khilafiyya kabira. It's a major difference in this particular mas'ala. There's a difference in this particular what? Matter. Even though, and I want everyone to respect the opinion of the great A'imma of today and what they see as what? As a danger for the Muslims. in which a lot of them mention and say that the women of today especially should be prohibited from visiting the graves. That is the opinion of a lot of the A'imma, especially of today, due to the fact of the weakness of Aqidah and how emotional women are. How they are emotional and how they can be emotionally attached to something very quickly. And their feelings is their fitna. The fitna of the women is their feelings and their emotions. That's their fitna and that's their test. And usually women can be very, very emotional, and they can be quickly to be attached to something. And they will say all the time, you'll find this, a lot of women say this out of their mouths, I'm feeling some type of way. And I hate that statement because I hear that in that stupid street, dumb statements that I hear. I'm feeling some type of way. I feel like. How you feel is the problem. How you should now feel is what the Messenger of Allah told you. And that should be enough. What Allah has told you. And what the Messenger has said. That's what takes precedence over what you feel. Because if people was to go based upon we feel, the whole dunya would be corrupt. And I think in Allah knows best, the whole dunya would be destroyed if everyone goes based upon how they feel. The whole dunya would be corrupt and the whole dunya would be in chaos. That's the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved us from our emotions by sending down a revelation, so there could be a system, it could be a protocol and a resource to go back to when we differ or when we feel some type of way about something. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? طيب. So you'll find that the majority of the ulama have prohibited, you'll find that a lot of them have prohibited, and especially in these days and times, of women visiting the graves. No doubt. However, I'm going to read what the great Imam Al-Albani mentions. He clearly puts stipulations on if a woman was to visit the grave, that she cannot do it all the time. Other than that, she will fall under the la'na of Allah. And if she does it, there's strict conditions for it. From them is that she has to be a person that is firm in her belief in her aqidah. And she's not a person that will more than likely wail and lose her emotions and go berserk and start losing her composure, and now her emotions get the best of her. Or more than likely she'll start to now come out, and as a result of it, she will even maybe start falling into polytheism due to her attachment of that person who she maybe loved, and they was from the deceased, and their heart still being attached to the person until they even fall into polytheism and shirk with the person. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? طيب. You'll find that a lot of the A'imma, especially these days and times, and their respectable statements, and their statements is very strong, especially with the great Imam Muhammad Aman Jami and Abdul-Aziz ibn Baz and Shaykh ibn Uthaymeen and other from them have clearly mentioned and said what we see in order to cut the doors, especially in these days and times, due to the weakness of the iman of the faith of people these days, especially in regards to our women, is that they should be prohibited from doing that out of fear that they will what? Fall into some type of prohibition in regards to the grave. He says, similar to what Aisha, what she mentioned, Aisha said that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ used to allow the women to go to the masajid during his time, to the point where our mother Aisha said, if the Messenger of Allah seeing what the women are doing now today, he would have prohibited the women from going to the masajid. Meaning what they used to do of leaving out, of trying to be ostentatious and flirtatious and wearing tight overgarments and trying to attract men to be fitna for men and fitna for the people, and also displaying certain things that they should not display. And Aisha clearly said, the Messenger of Allah allowed the women to come to the masajid. She said, but if he had seen what they're doing today, he would have prohibited you from going to the masajid. You understand, everyone? You'll find that Ahl al-Ilm mention and say this in this regard, that in regards to what? Visiting the graves for the women, they said out of closing the door of what they will fall into a polytheism, that they should be prohibited from doing that. However, what we're going to mention what the Imam Al-Albani mentions, and I'll bring some of the texts, Then I'll bring the conclusion in the end, inshallah. So I'll read it, and because I think I mentioned this before a couple of months ago. At any rate, Tafadal, Qadi then. Who wants to Qadi then? Who Qadi? Is Amir? No, Amir's on here. Oh, he's in the office? Oh, the other Amir too. Oh, he's not here. A lot of that statement is real famous. I'm feeling some type of way. I'm in my feelings. That's a real famous statement of, I'm in my feelings. I'm in my feelings. I'm in my feelings right now. I'm in my sister, your feelings is what Allah and His Messenger said. No more nullahs. Prophet, here we wait till the other. Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar. Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar. Ashhadu la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammad. الله أكبر الله أكبر اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آتي محمود الوصيلة وفضيلة وبعث المقام محمود الذي وعدته. طيب. I'll read briefly what the great Imam al-Albani mentioned and we'll stop, inshallah. He said, as we know, in the beginning of the revelation, brothers and sisters, it was prohibited, the message of Allah prohibited generally, men and women both, for visiting the graves. The first part of the revelation. That was clear, right, everyone? So that was the first stage. For the Prophet ﷺ prohibited that the graves be visited. And that was a ruling that was comprehensive for both who? Men and women. طيب. When the revelation progressed as far as it being deep-rooted in the hearts of the people, where the message of Allah had the fear of polytheism was removed, and the aqidah became firm in the hearts of the people, the belief and the At-Tawheed and the monotheism and the worship of Allah became deeply rooted and well-grounded in the hearts of the people. Later on the revelation, in Al-Madinah, the Prophet ﷺ said this: "Kuntu nahaytukum an ziyarat al-qubur, fazuruha fa innaha tudhakkirukum al-akhirah." I used to prohibit you from visiting the graves. For visit them, for verily reminds of the hereafter. طيب, you'll find that Ahl-Ilm and the great Imam al-Albani even mentioned this in Kitaab al-Janaza. This is a tremendous book with Ahl-Ilm praise. Ahkam al-Janaiz wa Bid'iha is a tremendous book that Ahl-Ilm praise. This book by a great Imam al-Albani is called the Book of Funerals. It's a whole book he wrote on the ahkam regarding the funerals, which is a tremendous book in which Ahl-Ilm that they praise in regards to what he brought and the type of content and tremendous benefit that he brought. But at any rate, the Imam al-Albani said, when the message of Allah at the first part prohibited both, here in this instance when he's now switched it to say it's permissible, who is he talking, who is he addressing? Did he make an exception? So he's saying just as it was prohibited for both, then here when he legalized it was made likewise for what? Both. And that was the case, the Prophet ﷺ would have said, except the women. But he didn't. You understand what I'm saying, everyone? Saying what I'm saying for so far. Just listen. So I don't want nobody to get a part of this, because people will get a bits and pieces of the lecture, or the lecture of the class, excuse me, and then they'll get the wrong understanding. طيب. So this is what he goes on to say. فلا شك أن النهي كان شاملا للرجال والنساء معا. When the prohibition in the first part of the revelation is for the women and men together. So what was understood when the Messenger of Allah said that I used to prohibit you from visiting graves? What is understood that he was what? He was talking about I prohibited you. He's speaking about men and women. He said for now it is understood that when he now switched it, he was also addressing who? Men and women. He said if it was an exception, he would have said it. He would have said, except the women. This is only exclusively for who? The men, without the women. But did he say that? No, he did. So just listen. Just listen. ويؤيده الخطاب في بقية الأفعال المذكورة في زيادة مسلم في حديث بريدة المتقدم ونهيتكم عن لحوم الأضاحي. He says similar to that you'll find that other affairs that the Messenger of Allah was prohibited in the first part of Revelation, then he switched it, and you could tell when the other ruling came in the later part of the Revelation, it was what? It was addressed for both. For example, the Messenger of Allah in the beginning of the Revelation used to prohibit that alcohol. Of course, not only the alcohol became impermissible, but even the vessels and the containers used to be consumed in was also prohibited. Then the Messenger of Allah later, when the revelation became settled and their iman was strong, the Messenger of Allah said, he used to prohibit you from drinking in those vessels or those cups. He said, you could drink in a cup, but do not intoxicate yourself, and do not drink what? Intoxicants. So who is that for? Else for who? Men and women, or just went men? Men and women. For both. طيب. So just listen. So not only do they use, or Ahl Ilm, that they say the hadith of Abdullah ibn Mulayka, that's just one narration. That's one narration. The Aisha was said on the day when she came back from the graves, al-Mu'mineen, where are you coming from? قالت, she said, I'm coming from the grave of my brother, Abdurrahman ibn Abi Bakr. فقلت لها أليس كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم نهى عن زيارة القبور? Didn't the Messenger of Allah prohibit the graves be visited? She said, yes. Then he commanded later on that they be what? Visited. طيب. In another narration it says the Messenger of Allah gave an allowance for visiting the graves. طيب. However, Imam al-Albani, Imam al-Albani here is giving very strict conditions, because we know that our mother Aisha was the greatest of those who are upon firm aqidah and upon firm steadfastness of uprightness in regards to her belief and not allowing her emotions to overwhelm her. So her aqidah was strong. However, is this concerning a woman now who's emotional? A woman is going to lose her mind and her emotions get the best of her? Here in this instance, it would be what? It would be prohibited in regards to her. Is it clear what I'm saying so far? Especially if you find a woman, she's very emotional, she's quick to let her emotions, like we said, emotions is the storms. And the fitna of especially our sisters, I think the fitna, and Allah knows best, the fitna for women is their emotions. That is their fitna. The biggest trial for women is their emotions. That is their fitna. Is to be able to control and keep their emotions controlled. It's a fitna for them. You understand what I'm saying, everyone? طيب. For now, concerning this person, or this type of danger, if she's emotional, then it's been what? Prohibited that she what? Not go. Even though Aisha did what? She did do it. طيب. So that's one evidence. There's other evidences. طيب. Another narration, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ left out. And I'm going to keep this, and I told everyone this. This is about 5 months ago. The Messenger of Allah went out, and he went to the grave. As Jibreel came to the Messenger of Allah, I'm going to just sum it up because the hadith is real long. Jibreel came, told the Messenger of Allah, and it was in the nighttime, and the Messenger of Allah ﷺ left out. He went to the grave of his companions, and he supplicated to Allah. He supplicated to Allah to forgive them, and he supplicated to Allah to the end of the narration, as it says. The Messenger of Allah sees a black spot following him. He's seen a black spot following him. Aisha did not know that the Messenger of Allah saw her. So the Messenger of Allah started going back, and he was coming back very fast. And that black spot kept going fast. So the Messenger of Allah was going faster, and the black spot went faster. Till the Messenger of Allah arrived at the house and found that Aisha was breathing like this. So the Prophet ﷺ said, "Was that black spot you?" The Messenger of Allah even became upset. He was upset to think that, as we see here, women, their fitna is jealousy. What's jealousy? Their emotions. It's as if the Messenger of Allah was going out to do something. He was going to go to one of your wives, huh? He was going to one of your wives. You sneaking out in the middle of the night going to one of your wives, huh? That's how they are today. Jealousy, their fitnas, their emotions. And then in the end, you find that that wasn't the truth. In certain instances, if he's a trustworthy, upright man, of course. And that's not the case. You understand, everyone? So the Messenger of Allah was upset. And he sees it says that the Messenger of Allah gave her a tap on the chest because he says, well, what do you think? Allah and the Messenger would do something that was inappropriate that would go out? He said, well, rather what happened at the point of the evidence, because I'm going to read it because I'll see exactly what it says. And I'll read it real quickly. That one part. Now listen to what he says. قلت نعم. He said فأخبرته الخبر فقالت فأنت السواد الذي رأيته أمامي فقلت نعم فلهزني في صدري لهزة أوجعتني ثم قال أظننت أن يحيف الله عليك ورسوله. The Messenger of Allah was upset. Basically, she thought he was going out to do something, maybe his wife was, so she was just going out. So he says, the Messenger of Allah, were you the black thing that I seen in front of me? She said, yes. So he said, he struck me, he strike. And he even gave me a little pain. He said, do you think that Allah and His Messenger will what? Will mistrust you and let you down? Will do something inappropriate to have you? She said, no. He said, مَهْمَا يَكْتُبِ النَّاسِ يَعْلَمُهُ اللَّهِ. He said, no matter how much the people hide, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has knowledge of it. And then the Messenger of Allah explained what happened. Jibreel came to me and said to me, he called me to go out and what? Make dua for the companions who died, to the end of the narration. And he said that the type of dua that you say if you go to the grave of the believers is this narration, which is if we was to pass by a grave and we know there's Muslims in it, Assalamu ala ahli diyar min al-mu'mineen wal-muslimin wa yarham Allah al-mustaqdimin minna wal-mustakhirin wa inna insha'Allah bikum lalahiqun. That narration. Fine. So the message of Allah, what was the point? What's the point of evidence? What's the evidence here that Shaykh al-Albani is using? If it was prohibited, he would have said to Aisha clearly, what? It was not for you to go to the graveyard. Rather, he even told her a dua that if you was to go to the graveyard, to what to say. See the fiqh of Imam al-Albani. So not only was a person of hadith, he was a person of fiqh. Because certain people out there say, no, he's a muhaddith, but he had no fiqh. Which is nonsense. طيب. So that's another evidence. That's another one. Also, the woman who the Messenger of Allah ﷺ was related upon Anas ibn Malik, and it's the reason why I'm saying this. The woman who, when she was at the graveyard, and she was crying at the grave, and the Messenger of Allah said, Isbiri wahtazibi. Be patient, contemplate your reward with Allah. Why am I saying Anas ibn Malik? Shaykh al-Albani said because Anas ibn Malik was in, or when he became under his authority, or became service for Shaykh the Prophet. When Anas ibn Malik became serving the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, that was in Al-Madinah, not in Mecca. And that was in the later part of Revelation. Why you think that the ulama mentioned this? It's a reason. Why? Why do you think, everyone? That was in the later part of Revelation, so that means the hukum was something that came after the prohibition. Later. So no one can say, oh, no, that happened in Mecca. That happened in the early part. But maybe she didn't know. Or maybe the Messenger of Allah didn't relayed to it? No. We say no. The Messenger of Allah ﷺ seen the woman clearly at the grave. Right at the grave. She was right there, crying. Right? The Messenger of Allah knows that it was not permissible. That if something was prohibited except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that was his mission to clarify to the people what? Of what Allah loves and what Allah hates. That was his mission. To clarify to the people what will bring them close to Allah or bring them or take them further away from Allah, could bring them to hell. And this affair was something that had to be what? Addressed. The Messenger of Allah didn't say anything. He just said, be patient and contemplate with your reward with Allah. For verily true patience is when the actual crisis or when the actual what? When it first happens. That's what shows true what? Patience. So for in the sabr fi awwali sadma. That patience is in the first, when it actually what? When that crisis or that catastrophe, when it first what? Takes place. Then the Messenger of Allah walked away. The woman said, because she didn't know that was the Messenger of Allah behind her, he said, you don't know what my affair is. You don't know what I'm going through. Fitting up the woman's emotions again, right everyone? Until the woman found out that the man that was talking to was the Messenger of Allah. The Messenger of Allah. So she immediately ran to his house. Because she didn't mean to talk to the Messenger of Allah like that. It shows the iman of the Sahaba, how great respect they have for the Messenger of Allah. So the Messenger of Allah came out, which shows a dalil that in instances that when there's a need to talk to a woman, then a man can talk to a woman for some necessity. Yes. So everybody put everything in its proper place. There's a need, so the Messenger of Allah came out. So he saw the Messenger of Allah apologize. I didn't know it was you. So the Messenger of Allah then clarified again. It said that what? Verily, he said in the end of the narration, verily true patience is when the first catastrophe first hits. That shows true patience. To the end of the narration. Tayyib. How Shaykh al-Albani used this as evidence, brothers and sisters? Because if it was prohibited, the Messenger of Allah would have said clearly what? Stay away from the graves. You're not even supposed to be here. In the first place. You're not supposed to be here. You understand what I'm saying, everyone? Tayyib. So this is the position of the great Imam al-Albani, which is evidence is very, very, very strong. Very strong. However, he put strong conditions on it. He said from them is a woman should not constantly do it. Otherwise they fall under the la'n of Allah. Because the narration says zuwarat or zawarat al-qubur. Women that constantly what? Visit the graves. Because it's on sighatu mubalagha. Women that constantly do it falls under the la'n of Allah ta'ala. But however, brothers and sisters, again, what the Imam of today also mentioned is very strong likewise. He said, due to the fact of the fitna of the Muslims of today and how they are strongly connected with grave worshiping, because of the amount of deviance that's out there, we need to shut the door and just prohibit it all the way. In order to what? Cut off all the doors due to the fact, as they say, mura'atan li al-masalih. Take consideration of what will bring the benefit and repel the what? The corruptive matters. In the fitna of today, where a lot of the Muslims that are practicing deviance and innovations and polytheism, and as a result of it, they should be what? Prohibited from what? Visiting the graves. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? He said, but if, let's just say, the aqeedah of the Muslims became strong and Salafiyya is deep rooted in their hearts, then inshallah, bi'idhnillah, that time will come, then inshallah they could. But other than that, because of the fitna of today and how weak and far away the Muslims all over the world have went away from their religion, of so much deviance and bid'ah, of people going to the graves and reading Yasin and reading the Quran by the graves, and also people making dua by the graves and making supplication thinking that the dead is going to allow their dua to be worshipped. Not only that, they start to turn their dua to the dead, and which comes as a result of it, their Islam is nullified. So all these dangers of what are potentially tremendous dangers, the ulama clearly say that women shouldn't even what? Even visit the grave. They shouldn't come as a result of falling into the most uglified, vilified, disgusting sin that any human being could commit, which is polytheism with Allah wa ta'ala. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? So that's the last affair, so we could go to the last part of the chapter. But there's a lot of ulama that, like I said, if you hear that, that is a respected statement, and that is even regards to the niqab. I'll talk about that later. Even Ahl Ilm that mention it say, okay, let's just say it's not wajib. But we want to say, number one, if the husband say to wear it, then it's wajib. Secondly, on top of that, he said, due to the fact that we live in days and times where women have lost their shyness, they've been affected by the ideologies of the West. They've been affected by all these different filthy type of practices of the societies that they've been brought up upon, of being flirtatious and ostentatious and tempting, and all these things that our women have been raised upon, that the niqab will be for something that will aid them as far as earning some type of shyness because of the fitna of today that we live in. But as far as the hukam, I'll talk about that later. Talk about that later, inshallah. I don't think this is the time for it. But anyway, we'll stop here. We'll stop here, inshallah. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك. أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. Anything with the questions about the lesson, anyone? تفضل.